to the July meeting of the Human Rights Commission. I'm Kyle Bussey, I'm chair of the commission, and I'm just going to have everybody introduce themselves, including you all who have joined us today. And then we're going to approve the agenda in the minutes and get to work. So I'll go ahead and start. I'm Kyle Bussey, Commissioner.
John Bursuit, Commissioner. Diallo Bennett, Commissioner.
Mayra Bernard, Commissioner. Amy Samara, Commissioner.
Alan Lazo, Commissioner.
Sarah Millier, volunteer.
Jeff Selby, Office of Equity and Human Rights.
Does that mean we're not volunteers?
You are a volunteer. You just have name tags.
Anita Fry, volunteer commissioner.
Volunteer.
Okay, and Curtis, why don't you get us started up front?
So Curtis Bell with Peace Action Group of First Unitarian here for this resolution.
Thank you.
Mike Tabor, filming as Joe Anybody, and here is just an independent filmer.
I'm Peter Parks. I'm on the executive committee of VOS.
Welcome, Peter.
Romero Sosa with VOS, so we do the presentation today.
Welcome.
I'm Hannah Farinado. I'm one of the organizing interns at BOS.
Lamont Mr. Portman, Commission on Disability.
Go ahead.
I'm Maxine Fuchsen with Physicians for Social Responsibility and Jewish Voice for Peace, here to present the Multnomah County resolution.
Thank you. And in the back?
Martín y soy jornalero.
Welcome.
The labor.
All right. Amy, we were just looking at the minutes from last month. Does anybody who's had the chance to look at the minutes from last month have any substantive changes that need to be made? Okay. Roy?
The nominating process for the vice chair. Pardon me? The description of the nominating process?
Yeah.
Because it should set out that there's a, I mean, by themselves, the terms nomination meeting and voting meeting don't mean. So there should be clarity around it. We established there will be a nominating meeting and there will be a voting meeting. The nominating meeting will be the first meeting after the vacancy occurs or is to occur. And then the rest of this. And then the voting meeting is the meeting, the next meeting after the nominating.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I just wrote down what we had on the recording. So.
No, that's, I don't know that we articulated it that way, but we should have.
So for an amendment, if there, well, I mean, the minutes should reflect, I guess, what was said at the meeting. So if we're unsure about that, maybe what we should do is just make sure that we look at that, and if there is something that needs to be amended, or at least revised, then we can go ahead and do that and put that into the motion, the minutes for next month's meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So do we need to?
So, did you get that?
See if it needs to be amended.
Right. So
Clarity around nominating and voting.
Right. So, Malloy, can you say what you?
So it should say, there will be a nomination meeting and a voting meeting, period. The nomination meeting is the first meeting after the vice chair vacancy occurs. The voting meeting is the first meeting after the nomination. Great. And then I think the rest of it's fine.
Okay. Thanks, Malloy.
Are there any other changes to the minutes that anybody has, or has a recommendation? No? Okay. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes with Malloy's amendments as written. Second? All in favor of accepting the minutes with Malloy's amendments, show of hand and an eye?
Aye.
Aye. All abstain, or any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Minutes are approved as amended. And for our agenda today, I have one proposed amendment. I'd like to move, we've learned that Dante James isn't going to be available. And in order to make sure that we get as much participation as we can, I'd like to move the vice chair election into the slot that has been allotted to the OEHR update. So move 7 into 4. I don't think the vice chair election will take longer than 10 minutes, so I don't think we really need to.
Can we allocate that 10 minutes? I'd like to see us give a little more time to the roundtable wrap-up.
Okay.
I'm looking at mostly because I'm looking at the survey, and I'm glad we have the evaluation. I'm assuming that's your work, Jeff, the summary of the evaluation. It's really interesting.
And mine needs to leave at 5:10. I'd love for her to be able to be present for that, to hear it directly.
And I'm actually moving the vice chair election so that she can participate in that. And so, are you proposing something else?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'm just saying add the 10 minutes to that agenda item. I don't know
So
if we can make it.
what we can do is move vice chair election to number 4. We're going to take 15 minutes for that and add the 10 minutes that we're eliminating from the OEHR update into the Human Rights Roundtable wrap-up to make that 20 minutes. Does that work? Okay.
We might want a brief update on OEHR. Jeff can give us a little. I'm thinking specifically around the office's update to council.
Right. Why don't we do that under committee and task force updates? Because the reason we put the OEHR update so high is Dante's here at the beginning, so if Jeff's going to be here, you're going to be here by the end, I assume. Okay. So why don't we add a bullet down under committee and task force updates for OEHR update?
And
Are there any other amendments to the agenda today? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
All in favor with a show of hands? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the agenda is accepted as amended. We're ahead of schedule already. Good job, everybody. Okay, so our first item on the agenda is public comment. We have been informed that Maxine, is it Fuchsen?
Perfect.
And Curtis Bell have a resolution that they're presenting to Multnomah County that they'd like us to endorse, and they want to present that to us today for our endorsement in the next meeting, I believe.
Should we look there to the?
please.
Sure. Thank you.
It's in your packet too.
Oh, thank you very much, Jeff. And this, I believe, was emailed out to everybody earlier this week.
I have other copies also that includes the organizations and leaders that have already sponsored this, endorsed this resolution. I have copies here. And I also have copies of the city resolution that was passed in January 2012, which is different from Multnomah County one. It's really focused on the Afghanistan war, but it is the same intent of the effort from below to get our government to change its priorities away from war and military spending toward the human needs that all of you are engaged with. So I have that here if anyone would like copies of that city petition, and also this happened. So Maxine will describe the resolution and give some background to it. And then I'll be around. She'll have to leave a little bit early, but I'll be around for the whole meeting if you have any questions about it or comments to make. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to share this issue with you, because this really is about what you're about, the changing of our priorities towards human needs and the solution of human problems up here. And, so that's what Maxine will be presenting the resolution.
And now that you're on camera, if both of you would just go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Okay. My name is Curtis Bell. I'm with the Peace Action Group of First Unitarian Church, and we and a number of others are working on this resolution. The organizations are listed on the page there.
And I'm Maxine Cookson, and live in Portland, and I'll tell you more about myself in my little presentation here, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, should I go ahead?
Absolutely.
Okay, so, well, thank you, first of all, to all of you commissioners and the community members who are here with us this evening to listen. So, Kurt Bell, my colleague, and I are here to ask for the Human Rights Commission endorsement of a resolution that's being brought before the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners, calling for us to redirect our national priorities from the huge amount of spending on the military and war to instead spending to address the human needs in our community. The resolution was written and has been endorsed by individuals from many walks of life, including clergy and veterans, a number of representatives from various churches and local peace and justice groups. I'm going to start, and then Kurt may make some final comments, and also, as he said, he's here for questions at the end of the meeting and further discussion. So just a little bit about me. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I'm also a member of Physicians for Social Responsibility and Jewish Voice for Peace. Both are organizations that have endorsed this amendment. So for many years, I've provided health care in the community with care through Multnomah County Health Department clinics. And now I'm working on health issues of very young children and how we help children and families be healthy so that children can enter school with every possible measure for success. So the City of Portland, the City Council passed a resolution, as Kurt mentioned, in January 2012 that's similar, not exact, but similar to the one, totally similar in intent, that we're bringing before the Multnomah County Commissioners. And both these resolutions, although they're symbolic, serve as a message to our legislators, both at the state and the federal level, that Portland, like all communities across the country, is hurting for funding of basic human services, and that we want these services to be prioritized over the hemorrhaging of money for war. So this resolution is part of a nationwide citizens movement where many localities across the country are speaking up and asking that, in fact, we re-examine our national priorities to be more in line with the needs of our communities. Because we know that vital and healthy communities are really the key to national security. So, as we said, we're asking the Multnomah County officials to go on record by passing this resolution. Because though our governments aren't responsible for allocating war funding and military funding officially, we do in fact pay for it. And I think that fact is brought home by figures published by a group called the National Priorities Project and others. But the National Priorities Project is a pretty amazing group in that they pull their data from US government figures to calculate how much any given community has paid into our US military budget in many different manners. And you can see all of their material. They have a website, National Priorities Project. One example of the data published by the National Priorities Project, since 2001, the taxpayers in Portland alone have paid $2.73 billion for the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. So how does this tie into the work of the Human Rights Commission? Well, the work of the Human Rights Commission is to eliminate discrimination and bigotry and to work for justice following the guidelines of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. My work, the work of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and I believe your work have many, many points of intersection. So in order for all of us to do our work as we should, we really have to reallocate our national spending away from war and into the services that all our children and our communities need. I think it's not unfair to say there's an elephant in the room. So from the Human Rights Commission strategic plan on page 19, a quote, "Portland will be prosperous only as it identifies, prioritizes, and addresses the root causes of inequity, many of which are grounded in human rights lapses and violations," unquote. And then section 1, article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, "Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services." So we could talk about any of those list of human rights, but we don't have time. So I just wanted to focus for a minute on one of them and talk about food as a basic human right. So some food statistics. In an article in the Oregonian in November of 2011, David Sarason wrote about the high cost of food insecurity among children in Oregon. According to statistics that he quoted from the USDA, 29% of Oregon's children are suffering from food insecurity. The District of Columbia and our state, Oregon, have the highest rates of childhood hunger in the nation. Sarason writes about the numerous studies showing the adverse effects of child hunger on overall health, academic achievement, psychological well-being, goes on and on. In fact, hunger and food insecurity have lifelong consequences. Economically, hunger has also hurt our state. According to a 2011 report called Hunger in America, published by the Center for American Progress, hunger in Oregon has cost us $2.1 billion in 2010 alone. We pay those costs through lowered academic and economic productivity, more hunger-related diseases, and a greater reliance on human services and emergency food programs. So just to make it personal, about 3 weeks or so ago, at the school-based clinic where I worked, as school was getting ready to be out for summer vacation and we were all looking forward to summer weather, I was seeing one of my patients, a lovely, energetic 4-year-old. I've known her family for many, many years, and that her family's her parents and her 2 older brothers. They're a hard-working family and they're very low income. So as my 4-year-old patient was obliviously sitting in the exam room drawing summertime pictures of flowers and her family on the exam table paper, her mom worriedly told me, and I've heard this from many, many families, that she worries so much about summer and her family food budget. Her children rely heavily on school free breakfast and lunch just to make their daily meals. She talked about how the summer meal programs that she relies on have been drastically cut. She'll be relying on food pantries and other free food sites to just barely make ends meet, she told me. And still, there are times when there just isn't anything in the house for the kids to eat. I have hungry, growing kids, she said. That's not what summer vacation for a 4, a 7, or a 10-year-old or their parents should look like in my mind. And that's why I think that this resolution is so important. It's really looking at how we've allocated funds in such an immoral way. So for that family and for so many others, our war budget really is a violation of their human rights. We need to go on record and change these priorities to tell our legislators in DC that we want a budget that respects and supports human rights, not one that diminishes our national capacity and does really nothing for any added security. Spending money on war is not just bad policy, it is immoral from a human rights perspective.
Thank you, Maxine. I think this, Maxine will have to leave a little early, as I say, but I'll be around to answer questions. I would just like to add a couple more numbers that the City Council has been disturbed by the debt deficit of, I think, $21 million. That's spent by the Department of Defense in about 16 minutes. Multnomah County has spent about $2 billion. The taxes from Multnomah County just in 1 year alone are about $2 billion. That totally dwarfs the small cut in the $21 million in the city budget. $8 million has been cut from the federal housing program. That represents all those renters that will practice homeless. So it's totally out of proportion, the amount of money that we provide for our community versus money for wars that really make us less safe, I would say, than we would otherwise be. So the spending for war and defense seems to us totally out of proportion, and this has led to a grassroots effort around the country, of counties around the country, of cities around the country, and some state legislatures, labor organizations calling for this change in national priorities. And so we'd like to ask the Human Rights Commission to be a part of that grassroots effort.
So I guess to be clear, what we're seeking is an endorsement of the resolution that will go before the county.
And you mentioned before the meeting that you didn't think that this would be going before the county commissioners before our next meeting in August.
Right, there's a draft before them now, just so you know the process, and we're working with them to get, you know, the wording exactly as they're comfortable with, and so it's kind of been a back and forth process.
Actually, the commissioner who has been was initially opposed to this resolution, Commissioner McKeel, who has a son who has been in Iraq 4 times or 5 times and very involved with veterans issues. She thought original drafts were not sensitive enough to the needs of veterans, so the resolution has been changed to make it more sensitive to the needs of veterans. And she has, at least at our last meeting, come on board with support for this resolution, so we expect it to be supported by the county commission. And if, so anyway, because it's not only veterans too, their veterans services are being cut by the sequestering and other cuts in federal spending.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just have a specific question about 1B in the resolve section. I'm aware, well, before that, I really appreciate all the specific data that you guys are bringing to this. It's very helpful. But for 1B, I appreciate that one too. And I'm wondering if this would include security contractor operations overseas as well. Could be that that military word does cover it, but I'm curious whether or not you feel that that would, because I'm aware that there's security over there too. Just something to.
Yeah, as you may know, in Afghanistan, the number of contractors is almost equal to the number of combat soldiers, and this is an enormous cost. So the specifics are not, this wouldn't affect, for example, probably the security contractors at embassies around the country, for example. It's not a blanket thing for all, but it's to, and the statement is to reduce, not to eliminate. So where security personnel was essential in an embassy, for example, that certainly would be part of it. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, yeah.
It was a bit different than the essential, because I'm aware that there's a line that bleeds between military.
Pardon?
There's a bleeding line between military and service personnel in war zones. So we don't probably need to get fully into it. I can talk to you about it later. I was just curious if that had been discussed in your.
I can't say that we discussed it to that point of.
Specificity, yeah.
Yeah.
This is more to change the orientation than any specific recommendation. Yeah.
So you always got something to say, and then we're going to have to move on. But as Curtis said,
I'll be
he's
here,
going to be here afterward.
I'll be here afterward for any questions.
Also, it sounds like there will be a final draft of the resolution that we'll hear.
I would imagine within the next month, before your next meeting, there will be a final draft.
So we'll get a copy of that.
And we'll send it to you. Yeah.
So go ahead, Diallo, and then we're going to.
My question is similar to Amy's. What's the difference between the military spending and foreign aid? Is foreign aid essentially?
I think different. So military spending specifically is weaponry,
Right.
Combat troops.
Yeah.
So it's not foreign aid in the sense of food or rebuilding supplies or things like that. The other thing that I think is really important is that it's not, there's no suggestion at all to curtail veterans' benefits. In fact, one of the groups so hard hit by these wars, I mean, the data of returning veterans is so dismal in terms of mental health issues and housing, education, all that stuff. So so we have been really clear and appreciate Commissioner McKeel's sensitivity to that, to add that there's no intention at all. So I would say foreign aid veterans, no intention to cut that.
Can I make one last comment?
Sure.
Really quick. So, there was a video sent by the Egypt situation, the Egypt rising situation, and what they asked for Obama and for America was to, well, basically their message was leave them alone, stop spending money on war. And so this is answering that call. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, this is really specifically a large part of our foreign aid, as you may know, perhaps I think the majority of our foreign aid is actually military in nature. That we give Egypt like $1.2 billion a year, which they in turn buy U.S. military equipment. I think that is not a direct spending of the Department of Defense, but of course it's all part of the same package, and anyway, it certainly wouldn't affect foreign aid that is not military.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for hearing this.
And so my recommendation at this point would be for this to be considered a request for action. And we'll talk a little bit more about how our communications and requests for action protocols are being laid out. But I would say that this would be appropriate for the CDC to accept this request for action and then to designate a committee or a commissioner to follow up on that and then make a recommendation at our next meeting. Is that fair for CDC?
It's a bit different than what we had been thus far planning, but we can.
I think for this round, I think it makes sense, but because we're also kind of defining moving forward the very specifically what activities we want to, or can we take on and relate directly to the mission? So for now, I think we can say yes, but then as a temporary.
So for this one, we'll do it that way?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Maxine and Curtis, very much. Okay, so we have moved the vice chair election up to this point in the agenda. This is the first for the HRC. We've got a hotly contested election for the vice chair. The remainder of the vice chair term, which will fill out the term that Emily had been elected to and that Damon resigned from. And so we'll go through till October of 2013. I know that this is a different situation. Diallo and Danita have agreed graciously to make themselves available for this position. In the future, we may have more candidates. We may have people who are really battling it out for a position on the executive committee. So I think that we should make it customary that the nominees have the opportunity to say something before the vote. And so I'm not saying that that's a requirement, but I think that it would be a good idea to make that our custom and that time available to them. So at this point, I'd like to give that opportunity to Diallo first. If you'd like to say a few words, that'd be great.
I think you have to officially close nominations first.
Oh, okay. I get that's a good point.
Yeah.
So before we do that, does that mean that there's a chance for more nominees to be?
Well,
That's the process,
that
right?
is right, yeah. We agreed at our last meeting that nominations would be open until the vote. So at this point, I would open the floor to any additional nominations. We've already had Diallo and Danita nominated. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Okay. With that, nominations for vice chair are hereby closed. So, at this point, I'd like to give Diallo the opportunity to say a few words prior to the vote. Go ahead, Diallo.
So I know that there's most or all of you guys are actually really qualified for the position. I nominated a few of you guys, and when I was nominated, it was more so out of the fact that there wasn't very much pull for it. Other people weren't really wanting to do it. And so I thought that, you know, if I was to run for it, that other people might want to as well, because they might try to fill that knowing that I'm the youngest and also one of the newest here. But then after, you know, discussions with some of the commissioners, I realized that, you know, it only goes until October, and I really care about the Human Rights Commission and I care about human rights in general, so I'd be happy to go until October.
Thank you very much. And Danita?
Well, as Diallo stated, all of us are qualified for this position, and it's a good service role to fulfill. I wasn't present at last month's meeting when my name was nominated. I was informed at the executive committee meeting, and I discussed the fact that I did not want to accept this position if it meant typically in the past, the vice chair has rolled over into a chair position, which I have served both of those positions before. I didn't feel that I wanted to take on that commitment this year, but in terms of being of service to this commission and considering that it's a short-term interim role to play, I also chair the Community Police Relations Committee, which is an added responsibility for the work here, and so I am more than happy to be of service if that's what we need for the short term.
Okay, so where we're going to do it is we'll go in alphabetical order. Everybody needs to, it's a public vote, so we're not putting our names in a hat. So a show of hands and an aye will.
Do we want to have any comments from commissioners before that happens, or?
I hadn't planned to, but I'm not opposed to it. If there's anything that anybody else would like to say. Okay. So we're going to go in alphabetical order, as I said. I'll just say the name, show of hands, and an aye. So officially, this is going to be the election of vice chair, the term of service which will expire on October 31st of 2013, I believe. Is that right? So all in favor of Diallo becoming vice chair for the remainder of the term ending October 31st, 2013, an aye and a show of hands, please.
Aye.
Aye.
So that's Danita, Amy, Myra, John, Ashley, and Malloy. I think that does it. For the record, all in favor of Danita becoming vice chair for the remainder of the term, show of hands and an aye. Aye. Alan and Kyle. So, I think we have it. So pursuant to the HRC bylaws, I had to write this down. Diallo Bennett has been elected by majority vote of the HRC to serve as vice chair of the Human Rights Commission with a term to expire in October of 2013. Congratulations, Diallo. And I'll give you the executive committee. We'll teach you a secret handshake. Yeah.
I've already been in the local man, I kind of know it.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for your patience as we wade through these new process changes. I think that's a good way to do it, and hopefully it'll work in the future. So, congratulations, Diallo. Thank you, Danita, for being willing to do that. And we will.
I just want to say that was very challenging for me. I felt really torn, and for obvious reasons. There's a lot of leadership qualities and everything else in both of you, and I really wanted to give a newer commissioner a chance to fill that position of leadership, and I've seen you grow a lot here with the commission. I'm really excited about seeing that develop further. So that had a lot to do with my choice in wanting to support a new leader developing within the commission. But Danita, you're phenomenal at what you're doing, and so that was very challenging for me. So I just wanted to share a few words.
First, she voted for him too. So.
I think I would like to add too that in our discussion at the executive committee that we had talked about the opportunity to mentor other commissioners in these roles too, because I was mentored when I had an opportunity to serve as vice chair by past commissioners and our support staff, and it was a very valuable professional development component for me, and I would hope that we would make that space available here too, especially to some of our younger commissioners as they come into this work for our city. So we had a discussion about that opportunity, and let's all keep it on the table for future.
Excited. Well, we're excited to have you, and we'll give you all the meeting schedules.
Yeah.
Okay, so next item on the agenda, we have guests from VOS to present to us on the Workers' Rights Education Project. So I believe is it Romeo and Andrea?
Yeah, we're 4 of us and we're.
Oh, come on up, come on up. Make yourself comfortable. Thank you very much for being here. And okay. Great. And if the four of you would just introduce yourselves for the record before getting started, that would be great. And then the floor is yours.
Good. I'm Romeo Sosa. I'm the executive director of
I'm Peter Parks. I'm on the executive committee of VOS.
Martín Covarrubias, soy jornalero.
Taylor. And I'm Paul Reek, I'm organizer of VOS.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so 4 of us, we're gonna do a little part of the presentation. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about like the history about the Worker Center. Everybody knows about the Worker Center, right? Yes. Okay, so I basically VOS works with day laborers in the 6 years ago, or many years ago, that day laborers, they look for work on the streets. Of course, when there is like a lot of people, a group of men or women on the streets, there's going to be tension. And there's two things, like there's a realities and also there's a perception. Like the reality is that there's a lot of human rights, civil rights and labor rights violation, and a lot of hate crimes, a lot of non-criminal wages that they labor suffer. But some of the perception are like they are all drug dealers, they are drunks, they are homeless, and they don't deserve to be here, or they are all illegals, you know. So I think a lot of like those realities, there is a reality that a lot of people, they create a mess, and some of the people, they pee on the streets. But I think something like we can solve is to put a bathroom or a garbage can. That's something we can help solve. And also and in the other side, the CEIC, it's
Central East Side Industrial.
Yeah. Also, they talk about the possible solution about how can we deal with the people who are in the streets, you know, and there are complaints like there's like people dealing drugs over there. But in 2006, Tom Potter, I was the mayor at that time, I created a group they call SAFE, which is Street Access for Everyone. And I was part of that group to create like a solution about the problems that happen in the street. There are many problems, but one of them is the day laborers. So as a part of the solution, we created in that time that to create a worker center. And everybody proposed that to the city, and they allocated $200,000 to create the first day labor center in the city of Portland. And VOS was chosen to run the center. And they went through a process according to the city. They have to make it public, and so they choose VOS. And also they hired like 2 consultants to go to what will be, because the mayor doesn't want a project that in 2 years it's not gonna function. It's not gonna be good. So because we are connected to the National Day Labor Organizing Network, so they follow the best practices that they happen, how they open the worker center around the country, and we follow them. And the mayor hire those people to follow up, like how to open the worker center with a successful project. And so they went through all the process, and in June 2006, June 16th, we opened the worker center and located in Northeast Everett and MLK. But part of that too, we have to go to neighborhood agreement. We have to a lot of meetings that how we can do what's the best communication to if there is a crime happen to the worker center all around there. And so we signed up that agreement, and that's when the office center or the worker center we opened in June 16th, 2009. It's 5 years.
So I'm going to bring you up to date on the campaign that we're currently in and why we're here today to bring out your support. Because we have now been open as a worker center for 5 years, and it was a 5-year lease that the PDC gave us on that property that it's sitting on. And we went to the PDC over a year ago, I think a year and a half ago or so, and inquired about extending the lease, and we were told that they were not interested in extending the lease, that they were not interested in holding the property any longer. And so we started conversations with the PDC as well as with the former mayor's office about what the options might be. We've discussed, they talked about maybe selling it to us. We don't have enough money to buy it, so we finally, and we started looking around for other options for locations to move the center if it were not allowed to be on the property longer, and all the way around that area. Again, Romeo mentions best practices. One of the best practices is to not to have a worker center very far from the street corners where day laborers habitually gather, because otherwise the day laborers won't go there and the employers won't go there. So we need to be in that general area, and that's the only city-owned property that's available apparently for us in that general area. There's quite a few private properties, but they're quite expensive. People are investing in those as the area is developed. So we made a decision to ask the city to turn over ownership of the property to BOS. This is also because part of this is to allow it to be a permanent home, a permanent arrangement. So we do this kind of a 5-year test, we shall say. And now I think we've passed the test, and it's time to make this a permanent arrangement that's become a part of the community. Also, in order to improve the property, because those 5 years we've had temporary structures. Those who've driven by know that there's a construction trailer and a temporary room there with no foundation. We have, by a quirk of luck, we got running water, but we don't have any sewer facilities. So we have porta potties for 5 years. It's not a permanent situation. And so we've been approaching foundations to do a capital campaign to build the permanent structures, and they've told us that they will not think, they would like to give us money for that, but not if the property's not in our name. So once the property's in our name, come back and see us and we'll talk. So we really realized that having the title of this property was really the key to moving forward in a lot of directions, in terms of constructing a better looking and more functional facility, in terms of fitting into the community more as the community develops in that central east side area, in terms of and also sustaining the worker center for the long term. And so we have met with the mayor, we have met with all city commissioners. The commissioners have all said they support us completely. The mayor has said words of support, but he's not committed to a specific course of action. So we have been working for months now on a business plan and a conceptual design for the worker center. The conceptual design is now complete. The business plan will be complete in the next few days. And we've been in conversations with the mayor over the last several months in addition to our meeting with him. And the last thing he's told us was the end of June, that he was going to make a decision by the end of July. So we are now in the 10th of July, and we're bringing this to you to ask your support to push this over the final foot of the race. We have been working very hard. We've built a lot of community support. We have support from unions, faith communities, employers who use the center, business people, a lot of community organizations are on board, and we've had folks writing letters to the mayor, signing petitions. So we think that we're doing what we can to bring this and help convince the mayor that this is the right thing to do. And we'd like to get your support to put this up in the finish line.
So Martin's going to talk a little bit about the benefits to use the workers.
Pues aquí los encargados pues ahí del centro jornalero me invitaron pues a venir a esta reunión.
I was invited to this meeting.
Y pues yo me doy cuenta pues ahí por ellos que del problema pues que tenemos ahorita de que se cumplió pues el contrato que tenía la ciudad ahí con la organización de voz.
So I've realized the situation that the Senate Worker Center is in, that the contract has now expired.
Y entonces pues todos estamos a la vez preocupados porque pues pensamos que irá a pasar pues con el centro si toda la gente nos vamos a regresar a la calle de nuevo.
And so we're all kind of concerned about the situation. What's going to happen if the Worker Center cannot continue? Will we all have to go back to the streets?
Ya que ahí en el centro pues es donde yo he trabajado pues la mayor parte del tiempo.
Well, the Worker Center is where I found work most of the time.
He conocido pues patrones y patronas así en casas que he ido a hacerles que la yarda, que diferentes trabajos y año con año pues y me he sentido a gusto ahí en el centro ya que pues ahí nos vemos como una familia.
I found employers who have hired me to help them in their homes, in their yards, and we're very pleased to do that. And also those who use the center feel like a family.
Tenemos ahí pues un lugar para protegernos pues del frío cuando la nieve en el invierno.
We have a place to protect ourselves from the cold in the wintertime.
Tenemos ahí baños
We have some bathrooms.
Y personas pues que van ahí a ayudarnos, a enseñarnos a hablar en inglés
We have people that come teach us English.
Y algunos trabajos de pintura, de arte, de diferentes cosas.
And different trainings in painting and art and different things.
Los viernes y los martes van unos abogados también que voluntariamente ayudan a la gente cuando no les quieren pagar los patrones.
On Tuesdays and Fridays, lawyers go to the center to help folks to recover stolen wages.
Ahí en el centro jornalero, por lo regular, yo pienso que han de ir como unos 70, 80 personas diarios.
I'd say in the Worker Center there's about 70 to 80 people coming through every day.
Tenemos un comité formado con nosotros mismos ahí.
We have our own committee that we formed there.
Para mantener el lugar pues más o menos limpio y que no haya pues cosas pues fuera de la ley como vender droga o vender cosas robadas.
And that helps us to keep the place clean and orderly and avoids getting into problems of drugs or other things that might be against the law.
Pues yo me he sentido pues a gusto y todos mis compañeros bien ahí protegidos.
And I felt good there, and my companions there all felt well protected. That's good.
And I think I just want to complete that. Since we opened the Worker Center, we have sent 16,000 people to work, and we have trained about 50 people for the skill training to integrate to the U.S. workforce. And like you mentioned, we have English classes, art classes. I think one of the biggest things that benefit the Worker Center that they interact with the rest of the community, with the neighbor. Some of them, they don't even know it's a day labor, so it's an opportunity to interact with them and to wait for them. So that was a good thing. And also, I think it's more It's more secure in the side of day laborers and also in the side of employers too. They feel more comfortable to go to the worker center. And right now, there's like a lot of employers, they repeatedly come to the worker center, and it's gonna be hard for us if we're gonna move somewhere else. So I think it's gonna be like take time to do the transition. And I'm gonna turn to Peter Parks.
I just want to say, this is not what I was supposed to talk about, but I want to talk just briefly about the wage theft issue. And that is that at the day labor center, when an employer comes, the staff there take down the name and the address of the employer so they can track the person if there's going to be any problems. But there have been very few problems with employers coming to the center. Actually, they've recovered a lot of money in wage theft, but it's mostly from people at the corners. It's not the workers who come to the center. So just that's another, it's a real benefit of the way the jobs are given out at the center. So I'm supposed to talk about the asks, and we have 3 asks that we are presenting to the city. We've talked to all the commissioners and the mayor, so they all know what these asks are. And these are, 1, change in ownership of the property, it's already been mentioned, of the day labor center, the property that's on, to make capital improvements possible. So if we have ownership of the property, then we can look for money from grants and private donations to actually do improvements on the property, including bringing the OS office, which is now in St. Francis Church, over to the same location, and it will make a much better operation there. Secondly, we want a permanent line item in the city of Portland's budget for the MLK Worker Center. We've been having to apply every year and go through a whole process, and it's been a separate thing. It's not a line item. Third, we need technical assistance from the PDC and the city to navigate the codes, zoning requirements, permits, and that kind of thing for the capital construction campaign that we want to do as soon as we get the land settled. And there is a possibility that we could get a long-term lease. There would have to be a pretty long-term lease that would allow us to do improvements. But it would be, the easiest thing in our view would be to have the land deeded over to us. We've been paying $1 a year for the lease so far. So with this body, with the Human Rights Commission, we would ask that you consider endorsing the work of OS and actively support our campaign to give the Day Labor Center a permanent home. So we've been asking other organizations to support by, writing an endorsement and giving it to the mayor, and that's the primary place that we would see that support going. But if we can get support from this commission, support that we can use publicly, saying that the Human Rights Commission is in support of us, and also a direct letter to the mayor asking us that he support us and work towards a permanent solution. So those are our asks.
Does anyone have any questions for the panel?
I have a couple of questions. One is, do you have a list of other supporters of the campaign? Is it on your website or something we could access?
No, it's we have individual organizations and units. So
And coalitions.
in coalitions, yeah.
So what we could have to.
We have to
send a
work
list.
that together because we still like everywhere. It's not really.
I'm gathering all that. My other question is around the ask for the change in ownership. Could you help us understand what the city's objections to changing ownership of the property is? Is it financial? Is it legal? What hurdles are they telling you are in the way of their ability to do that?
Well, what we've been told is financial. That the city has no money and the property has a value, and so they would have to sell it for at least its value.
Right, so they would lose out on the ability to sell that
Right.
property off as surplus land that they're not using for something
Right.
else.
And our response to that is that we consider the city to be a partner in this all the way along, and we're willing to go out and find the money to build better structures that they can put in that piece, which is the land that they already have, as their part of the park.
So they would, except the city would no longer own it, so they would, do you know what the value of the property is?
Officially, it says $350,000. That's what it says on the books or whatever on their website.
So if you could remove that hurdle, and so you have two problems related to capital improvements. You can't get funding from sources to do capital improvements without the city giving you the property. So the long-term lease idea sounds like it might be possible if you could do a very long-term lease, do improvements that would improve the value of the property, and if the city could retain that, the value of the property, then that might be a solution that would work for both sides.
Right, that's a big if. We don't know.
Yeah.
If
If
the
the
city is
funders
thinking
will-
that they might sell it in 10 years and we wanted a 25-year lease.
Or 50 or 100, and how many years would the funders require
Right.
of a lease to make it seem like it's basically permanent from their point of view?
Do you have that information? If your capital, if your investors would, what their
Yeah, we have.
lowest number would be?
I don't think we've asked.
We didn't consider that until very recently, the possibility of a long-term lease, so we haven't.
We've been in conversations with the PDC,
Yeah.
and the PDC has been talking in those terms, and so now we need to go back to the funders and ask them.
Has there been a precedent for the city doing something like what you're asking?
So we have champion.
No. A president is the, other organizations have done work, a deal with the city before. Bud Clark and the DPI are a good example.
What about Commons, you mean? What about the camp? Dignity Village.
And there,
I don't know how that's on.
yeah, but there have been other cases.
That's a good question. We should look into that.
So what are your next steps then?
Well,
We're hurrying up to finish that
we're
business
trying to
plan.
get
Meeting with the
the
mayor.
mayor, and
Oh, yeah.
if the mayor's answer isn't satisfactory, we may have to look for other property. Look into how we would do that. As has been said, this property is really right where we want it to be. It's finding other property in the area we've already looked, and there doesn't seem to be property available that would satisfy our needs.
The PDC has stated that they don't see the property as being particularly attractive. I mean, great location, but it's small.
Yeah.
And it needs some work to connect the sewer and things, so, to develop it. So they don't see people breaking on the door to make offers to the property right now, I mean, maybe in the future.
When does your lease expire?
It did last,
We're
on
a month
30th.
now with a 6-month promise that they won't do anything without letting us know.
So when is the 6 months contract?
Oh, since we were month to month,
Right.
and written in the lease is a clause that says they will give us 6 months notice.
And when would that, so they haven't given you notice?
They have not given us
No.
notice.
Okay.
So they have no concrete plans for the property right now. They just have decided it's not their strategic interest to hold it.
You mentioned that the next step is a meeting with the mayor. Is this a meeting that's already been set, or are you waiting for him to call you and say?
Waiting
"We
for him to
decided"?
call.
So you don't have a meeting at this point?
Not this next one.
I saw him 2 weeks ago, and he says, I'll get back to you within a month. That was 2 weeks ago.
And so your timeline is now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'd like to have the business plan ready to present to them when we get that meeting, yeah.
Well, we need to move on with the agenda. I would propose that this become an immediate action item that gets moved to the policy committee. And does that sound okay?
If
And
we
then-
can have any documents that you have gathered thus far, that would be so helpful for us in looking at what you've already collected, and then we can do a better assessment.
Good.
How soon do you need that?
As soon as you're ready to give it to me.
Because the business plan, like I said, we're still working, the next few days, we expect to get that done. So we'll get that to you.
I'll work around your schedule.
Okay.
And also I have like a sample of letters.
Okay, that'd be great.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't have time, but I will give you some contact information.
So if you can give Ashley your contact information, that'd be great. Thank you all very,
Thank you for
very much
listening.
for being here today, and good luck.
Also the list is.
Oh,
Yes,
that would be
yes,
great.
yes.
Because this is an immediate action item, I think that we need to do what we did with the paid sick time and authorize the policy committee to act in the interim before our next meeting at its discretion with the approval of the executive committee.
I think we should be specific around what we want, and this is what I would support would be a letter from, essentially what Moses asked us for, a letter to the mayor offering our support for the transfer of ownership of that property or some other adequate solution to keeping the workers' center, the day labor center at that site. Or at least asking to continue to work on the issue.
Well, and I think that at this point, because we don't have all of the information that we'd like, that I don't know if, I think like we did with the paid sick leave, we authorized the policy committee to make that decision whether that would be appropriate. And I think that this would be an appropriate example of the time to do that. Also, I think that it could go beyond just a letter. It could go, thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree also.
Individual letters, if you are one sign up as individual.
Thank you. It could also involve advocating to Josh. I mean, I might call Josh. So there are other things that could happen.
What is an important issue?
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to authorize the policy committee. Wait. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get this. So I'd entertain a motion to authorize the policy committee to gather information on this issue and take steps, if appropriate, to advocate for VOSA's, for the endorsement and support of VOSA's campaign.
On behalf of the HRC.
On behalf of the HRC.
Will there be specific communication about what that advocacy will be before that's done
They've asked for a letter.
with the city?
Will the policy committee, well,
I think there's that communication go up to executive, right?
I think that, according to the bylaws, the executive committee would have to approve that. But I don't think that we would, because of the timeline, I don't think that we would be able to, and because we can't vote over email, we wouldn't be able to ask for approval from the HRC on anything like that. It would have to be pre-approval for the policy committee to make their recommendations at their discretion.
But with that being said, if there are people who are individually interested in this, invite you to participate in the analysis. Any topical expertise is much appreciated. And I heard two specific requests to endorse, to send a letter to the mayor, but also to send some sort of public statement endorsing the asks. So I would, and if you're interested or others, I'd love to speak with you about that.
So why don't I guess nobody actually made a motion, so the motion, I think, should be a fairly broad motion to advocate for votes in support of the campaign that they just presented to us.
So I'm sorry, is the goal to get a letter to the mayor prior to the meeting he's gonna have with Bose, or hopefully gonna have with Bose?
Yes.
That could be included in that within that, in addition to that general support for campaign, including a letter to.
Could be a letter, it could be a meeting with the mayor's policy director, it could be a press release, or any form, or all of the above, any form of support that the policy committee deem appropriate.
I'm just wondering if we want to communicate with PDC and really, what's your guys' deal? Because they're the ones that are standing in the way. I mean, they're going to the mayor, have the mayor tell PDC, this is how we want to do it.
Well, I think that advocating in support of the campaign would involve all of those things. Would involve contacting the mayor's staff, contacting PDC, potentially finding out from the mayor's office what the hurdles are, what they're thinking, and working through that potential. So that's why I'm kind of using that broad term, advocate.
Well, I mean, I would be happy to move that the policy committee be tasked with developing specific actions for on behalf of the HRC to be implemented between now and our next regular meeting. Is that clear enough?
Is that your motion?
That is my motion.
Second, okay. Any additional discussion before we vote?
Yeah, will you say that again? Your second, so we didn't agree on your motion.
Right, Malloy's motion.
Okay.
Does the policy committee be tasked with developing a response, or developing an action plan and executing it between now and the next regular?
That advocates for.
That advocates on
behalf of the HRC for the Bose campaign.
I said it much better the first time.
Did you get that, Sarah?
That was better.
I know the words in it.
You can't say yada, yada.
We have a second. And
There.
Danita seconded. Okay. All in favor of Malloy's motion, show of hands and aye. Aye. All of opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all very much. We'll get to work. Myra, I'm sorry.
That's fine, thank you.
I tried to get that going.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Next on the agenda is the Human Rights Roundtable wrap-up. And I'm so sorry that we couldn't get to this before Myra had to leave. I really wasn't trying to.
She can watch it on video.
But yeah, she can watch it.
Ken, thank you, sir.
First, I just want to say congratulations to I thought that was excellent work. Everybody seemed to just enjoy being there, enjoy the format, and I think you all did a great job. I think we owe Jeff a round of applause. And so, it was just really well executed, really well planned. It was something that I think we'll be able to build on for many years, hopefully. Thank you guys very much. So with that, take us through the wrap-up.
Okay, my thoughts were to do an get some evaluation from you guys who participated as commissioners. So we have 20 minutes.
Yep.
We won't need all of that, but maybe we'll do that and then look at the evaluation report that came from our participants. Dale, do you have anything else that you wanted to do in this 20?
No.
Okay. So we are available to hear anything and everything you want to say, all the good and the bad and the ugly about the event, because we do intend to do this again, and we know there must be lots of spots that we can improve. So if I can just suggest we kind of do this in 2 parts. Yes.
Do you want to hold on just a second?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems
Yeah.
like you might want the input of some of the people who are outside. I'll just see if we can get everybody back in here.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm working on it tomorrow.
Good.
To be wrapped up into this.
So yes, Sarah's the one I think is worth doing. Oh, an eval? Sorry.
Yeah, so at my table, I have to facilitate and take down all, not the evaluations, but all the feedback
Yes.
provided.
You're
So
working
this
on
is separate.
feedback, right?
That's all done.
Except for what Ashley needs
Yeah.
to get to you.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I had emailed Amy and the CDC basically letting them know that I would work on it this week.
Oh, okay.
Just to walk over to me when I have time, so
Yeah.
they'll be getting it.
And then I'll just get yours now.
And the eval that you're talking about is this one, right? Okay. I think Malloy just stepped away, but I think we've got everybody here.
Okay.
She's gonna be here. Sorry.
So, that's great, no, that's great. So those of you who have stepped out, I would suggest that we do an evaluation, get input from commissioners who were there. We would like to have all your feedback that you want to give towards improving these events. And so basically we'll give some time for you guys to evaluate, and then we can look at what participants said. So basically, our first question would be, how was it for you as commissioners? How was our effectiveness? What was the ease in interaction for you? How was our instructions? how did our instructions go, were things clear? And then you can also, to kind of jog your memory, look through the evaluation form, Matt, because a lot of those might relate to your experience as well, and translate them to yours.
We should flip it and do that one first, and then go into what the commissioners think.
So why don't I just give like a 30 seconds or so to let people collect their thoughts. And is Sonji still here? No, she's.
Yeah, I think she responded.
And anybody in the public seats there, if you guys want to add to, I think I'd like to open it up to that, to your thoughts. And thanks for coming up with that.
And we're sorry that you're not commissioner yet. We're working on it. What's that? Oh, that's right. Oh, Linda, you're next time, so, all right. Getting confused with our new commissioners.
So yeah, I think we just popcorn if anybody who wants to start.
Well, I think that just from looking at the evaluations, you can see that the vast majority of people really thought it was valuable. And that is consistent with what I observed. It was really nice for me to be able to move from table to table, and I took a lot of notes, trying to collate the common issues. And it was many of the issues that kept coming up, we saw on all of the big boards, but there were a lot of common issues. But the one thing that was present throughout was just people's satisfaction, it seemed like, with their ability to be at the table, to be interacting with people that they wouldn't otherwise interact with all the time, and that the Human Rights Commission was actually doing this event. I think that was the theme that I kept hearing. Where have you guys been? And so it's great that it came off that well and that it was received that well. So I just thought it was great. It seemed like it was received very well. There were some hiccups with some of the communication about what tables were going to be doing what, and whether there were forums for specific topics, but you're not going to please everybody. And I think that was far in the minority compared to the people who were satisfied with their opportunities. So that was my takeaway.
I agree with everything Kyle said. I was really impressed with the turnout. I was impressed with the general flow of the overall program. You know, the one thing I think that we got the most, or almost the most negative comments about was the time allotted, but I think that there's no avoiding that. That's not, because if we had like a 4-hour thing, no one would show up. So, and you know, I found the small group discussion to be really inspiring, and to see other people, most of whom I had not met before, or at least only tangentially, who were interested in the issues that we were talking about, the issues that we're working on. So that was really inspiring and rewarding. You know, and as with all things, I think the true test of how successful this event proves to be is the follow-up. So, you know, we've taken on a big task, but I'm confident that we're able to be able to do it.
And I would only add, for our first step out there in the community, and your first step as a committee with Jeff and Sarah, being relatively new, I'm just blown away by how well organized and ran it was. I think it was excellent work by all of you. I think that's what sets up the next step, being that much more successful.
So we just have to hire Sarah.
Right.
Yes.
That was the main idea.
We can work on that.
Can we put that on, the agenda?
We'll make that part of the proposal.
Part of the newsletter.
Who they do the vice chair? We'll figure it out.
So I agree with the comments that are captured in the evaluation as well too, that as a HRC member, but also as a community organizer working on social justice and human rights issues in the community, that it was a great opportunity to come together and discuss collaboratively about the work that we're doing within individual organizations, but cross-collaboration that can occur and the potential that exists out there. I don't believe that we've had a forum where we can come together and have that kind of dialogue. And so I've actually ran across several participants out in the community since that experience who have really appreciated that opportunity. I think I was impacted by I heard the comment several times of exactly what is it that the Human Rights Commission does. We're glad that you're here. Where have you been? Why haven't we seen you before? And so how do we stay visible in the community and connected, I think is a piece to weave in of our work moving forward, because it feels like the work that we're doing is essential to a lot of the work that's happening out there. So I'm also very curious about what those next steps will be and what are the follow-up opportunities. Where is there room for the Human Rights Commission to bring daylight and support some of these really important issues that are occurring out in our community? And I really resonate with the second comment, and the comment section is focus on systemic obstacles to furthering of human rights. I think that there may be work and opportunity available in that particular space, but it was really a wonderful event. I was proud to take credit for all the hard work all of you guys did. So, thank you.
I'm not sure if I'm going to say anything that's already been said, because I've been validating parking and stuff. But the thing that really stood out to me was the last line on next steps.
Yeah.
That I mean, if you look at that, everyone really looks forward to working with HRC in the future, which I think is pretty huge. We've been worried about the past, you know, of things about, you know, do people know who you are? You know, what's the credibility of HRC? And I think this was really something for me that that hit home pretty well. You know, there's just some things to work on with objectives, and you know, gosh, this is the first one, so that's pretty good to have. You know, 78.9% objectives clear in the first one that we've ever done, so that's pretty impressive. As far as the compiling of all the information, Sarah has compiled everything already, so I will be getting that out to the CDC, so you have all those notes and everything. Pardon me?
We're waiting for yours, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not completely done.
Okay, so we have most of them. She has most of them.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, of course. So anyway, so that the big part, of course, is reporting back and making sure that we're doing something with this information. So, but great job, everybody.
The other thing I just wanted to add is I felt the way that you guys have framed it from the beginning was really helpful, that this was about us learning. I mean, I know we all agreed that was what we wanted, but there are many times when groups go out with that intention and it comes across as, we're here to tell you what your problems are. So, I mean, obviously I'm part of the commission, so I may be biased in that assessment, but I felt that the message was very clear, that we want to learn from you. We have put these broad issues together, we put these broad questions together, and we want to hear from you about them. And that it sounded from the reports back that the groups themselves used flexibility that was available to sort of address things how they felt it should be addressed, and not feeling, you know, like, okay, we got to fit everything into these round pegs. So I think that that's commendable on the CDC's part, being clear about that mission from the beginning and always having that frame in mind forward.
You know, and along those lines, I think that what's really interesting to me, you know, was going in with a preconceived notion about what I thought I would hear from community organizations about what role we could play in their work, and having it be totally different from what we heard. And so, you know, and Kyle and I talked about this in a non-quorum moment, that what we didn't hear was a lot of, you know, we need your help accessing the city, you know, access to city council and those things. We just didn't hear hardly any of that from these organizations. I think what I heard a lot of was, we need help connecting the work that's being done by all these groups. That's where we really need help, and that really, I sort of thought they felt like that was already happening in the community, but it sounded like a real void that we heard over and over again. And so, if there's a way for us to bring that work forward, I feel like we'd be superstars.
A lot of clearinghouse kind of talk. You heard that word a lot. I wanted, if the HRC could be a clearinghouse for information, could be a hub for all of our groups to be able to see what's going on with the other groups. And those are things that we can do, you know? I mean, it's powerful, or it's empowering to hear that there's a need out there that I really believe we can fill. And so I think I absolutely heard that same thing. It's not necessarily about us going out and spending all of our time on, you know, issues, you know, that we come up with and that we have to champion. It's about acting as that clearinghouse for others and bringing people together. And it's incredible that there's such a gap there and there's such a need there. And one of the things that we talked about before the event was filling a gap. Where are the gaps that exist? And I think we identified a big gap. So.
I also heard a lot about the desire for the HRC to do more public education, at least at my table. I heard a lot of that. And the desire for us to have more of a voice with elected decision makers also in providing that sort of oversight and advisement, which is in alignment with what we've been wanting to do in our public policy committee and elsewhere. So that was really promising. And I agree that I had some preconceived notions that there would be some more specific requests for specific actions on our part, and really I heard more of the clearinghouse in general, public education in general, analysis and advocacy work. So that was encouraging, because I feel like that's something within our capacity. I would say, so I'm not surprised by these evaluations. I thought the event went really positively, really well, so I want to say that. The only feedback that might be more constructive that I have in future planning is I'm always conscious of cultural and linguistic competence when you're doing these kinds of community-based events. And there are some language barrier challenges at my table, and I felt insufficient, that I understand a lot of Spanish, but I can't translate. And so, you know, and I think there was actually another language barrier at my table that I wasn't quite able to identify. And so I was thinking, you know, if we're really going to be this accessible, engaging coalition, it would be nice to think about if we're going to invite more people who maybe represent other language groups, that we have folks ready to, from their organizations, to translate and ready to serve in that role, or something like that. It's a little more involved in the planning process, but it's not a big deal. It's just there are a few things that like I couldn't say differently.
No, I think that is a big deal, and we did in the invitation, it was a small note, I would say, about if you need translation or interpretation, please let us know. But I think we could try to do more than that.
Also, it's in English.
And it's in English.
I think the idea of having the organizations be the ones that can translate for us, because maybe working with them on the next roundtable might be a good idea.
Well, and you know, the office is working on, you know, a system with procurement and a lot of other folks to make sure that when we're having public meetings, not just the Office of Equity, but any bureau, that ASL interpretation, language interpretation is, that we have some folks that are available. You know, we have to manage that, you have to say, you know, you need to request it within a certain time before the actual meeting. But we have those resources, and you know, so we just need to figure out how to make it inclusive, and it is a huge deal, I think. make sure that it's successful.
Well, and as a city entity, we have limited English proficiency obligations. So we probably need to be made more clearly aware of those.
Okay. Anything else?
I have a comment from.
Oh, Levon?
The PCOG was really excited to be invited, to be, participate. And I didn't go because I don't do policy work, I plan parks, you know, that's my job. So I did not go, so I can't, I'm speaking from basically what I've heard. But the one issue that did come up was a feeling of not really making as many connections because of the small group that our member was in, and feeling like she was not part of, and I don't know if it's a misunderstanding, this is part of the issues, I don't know if it's a misunderstanding of how it was running, but feeling like she was not really connecting with the larger community, but kind of got set aside in this other small group that, I don't know how to say it, but did other, you know, the other piece. And so I, like I said, I don't know if it's this, the miscommunication or something, but I do know that it felt like she wasn't part of the larger group as much, and so that was a little bit of an issue for our commissioner who did attend.
Thank you. Maybe next, I know that we were stretched on time, but time for the World Cafe exercise or something like that that would enable people to really mix a little bit more would be good.
And I'd like to do better next year with communicating with you guys about the planning of this, the design of this. I think that would help solve that experience.
And we will be happy to work with, because that was the one comment was, well, and I'm guessing, you know, she said, and I'm guessing that they're gonna take this information and the next one's gonna be better because they're gonna continue doing things, you know, and so it was a hard situation for that piece of it. She also felt like a lot of it was done very well. And she felt excited because she felt like the group was probably gonna be open to expanding how you do it in the future.
I think we can learn a lot about how we can run all of our events from this event too. It's not just the next roundtable. I think generally a lot of the lessons that we learn can be applied to any event where we're inviting people to join us for forums or community events. So.
Anybody else, Angie? Oh yeah.
Just one little observation was, seemed like the time went pretty quick. You gave a lot of time to speak, and then that last 15 minutes where you could move around, I don't know if that was that helpful because some of the people that you were conversing with left or wanted to, or just kind of went free-for-all a little bit. Don't know if that was helpful. Our table was quite crowded and hard to hear, and so if you weren't somewhat aggressive to really get your point out or really jump in, and if you were timid or a little bit quiet, it was kind of hard to hear. Or I think if you just had a little bit more time for a discussion and you could hear a little bit better, maybe people could feel comfortable or just say what they would want to say or listen and engage a little more. It kind of went quick, and the people who talked a lot, who knew a lot, talked the most. It was all fair and real, but if you were a quiet talker or a little reserved or wanted to listen a little more and engage more, it went pretty quick, and that's a little more time for the groups.
I was very impressed, and I think we're all stronger if we know what everybody else is doing and we work together and support each other. Everybody is stronger, and that was wonderful. One of the concrete suggestions was for a newsletter that indicates the different groups involved and what their issues are and where they might need help, and to follow on from your thought about a clearinghouse, that a newsletter would be about the human rights issues in Portland and what's going on would be quite helpful. It might have been a little, maybe to announce make a little clearer what the different groups were that were there. I mean, there was kind of a rough introduction at the beginning, but it was a little hard to, and that wasn't very clearly done, to make a clear statement about what organizations were there. And then maybe to have a time in the middle or at the end where people could make their own contacts. That might be another thought.
Okay, thank you.
I really enjoyed working with the committee, and I just want to commend the hard work of my fellow members. I really liked how we kept to the theme of we want to hear from you. This is a round table for you instead of, I think that we achieved that people did not feel done to and talked to or talked at, and that was really important to me. And I think that some of the confusion about what happens next or what's going on in some ways, if we had had a strong microphone throughout, I think it would have been more clear to people, maybe some of the transitions that we were planning. Because people don't just need a printed deal, they need to hear it orally, and they need maybe to have repeat, this kind of thing, to make it the structure of the evening more clear. Because in the evaluations, I heard that was the case, and I think it had to do with the volume of the voices. So.
I thought it was a wonderful event. I had the opportunity to sit at the table with Leah. And specifically, one of the things that actually came out of a conversation that I had after the roundtable was really what is the call to action that we want as a commission, and how are we going to prepare this? Obviously, was a great event. How are we going to prepare the community to get more engaged in this event in the future? So maybe laying the foundation now for next year and letting folks know, thematically, what were some of the key messages that came from the community, and how are we going to be responding to that going forward? So what are some of the things that we're already doing to address some of the things that they denoted in their comments, but then also laying the theme for what to expect with the roundtable. So this was our first time. I think it really has set the foundation for expectations and people talking about how positive it was. We want to continue to get it. Great job.
So we're running to the end, but I know you might have one more thing you want to do.
No, I just want to thank you guys for being willing to jump in and trust to participate the way that you did. And our next steps are to thank you to Sarah for who's putting together the feedback. Next steps are we're going to look into that and create a report about that, get that out by September. Linda's just drafted a thank you letter to participants that's going to go out and convey that to them. And then we're going to move into our public events or public forums. And so they will be very different, but similar in the spirit of them, I think, also very similar. And we'll just be getting back with you with more information on that next month.
Can we use all these notes for those two?
Yeah.
And it was a kind of a long evening, I think, for everybody, which, there's a lot to do. And but when you keep people that late, 41 attendees and 37 of them filled out evaluations, that's a pretty big, pretty big deal.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a high percentage turnout. So it's good data. I'm happy about that.
Well, thank you all so much. It was excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, Malloy, you have some presentations for us?
Yes. So I understand from Jeff that Sam and Sanji's nominations are they haven't gone to council yet.
Right, we're going to try to get them in as soon as possible, definitely this month.
Okay. So then maybe with our actions today, we can add 2 more people to that group.
Right.
So the nominating committee comes to you with a motion to nominate 2 individuals to fill the 2 vacant, well, the 2 more recently vacant positions on the HRC. We are recommending that we nominate Linda McKim-Bell and Emmanuel Price. Linda is here, Emmanuel was here, but I believe his daughter was not cooperating. So.
Oh, no, she was following her plan.
Yeah.
She was doing her job.
He was not
He wasn't
cooperating with her. So anyway, their application materials, I believe, were sent around earlier. I seem to remember seeing that. So I'm not going to go over their resumes. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. We'll start with Linda. Beginning with the fact that Linda has come to our commission meetings as a member of the public, has volunteered with the CDC committee, was very active with this event we just got done talking about, which was a great success. Obviously, that was not something that the nominating committee had to evaluate her on, but I would say that none of us were surprised to see that. That definitely came through in terms of the work that she's done in the past, the interviews we had with her, and her commitment to this work, which goes back. She has a very complete and passionate history of human rights issues, which we've all been very impressed with. So definitely am pleased to have her as one of the nominees. Emmanuel Price also comes now with a bit of positive notoriety with the article in the Scanner about his work with his nonprofit, Second Chances Are For Everyone, focusing on helping re-entry of people who've been incarcerated. And that is a huge issue, and one that I personally want to see us focus on. And so it's great to have him here to be able to lend his experience working with people in that capacity and providing us with information on what is necessary. How can we best utilize our resources to assist with this. I knew him before he applied. He and I worked together on the housing rights issues this last session on the Section 8 bill and the inclusionary zoning bill. He participated through his job at Center for Intercultural Organizing, and impressed me in terms of how he handled himself and the work that he was doing there as well. So I'm also very pleased to have him to present him as a nominee. So since it comes from the committee, it's a motion that doesn't need a second. So I don't know if there's any discussion.
Do you want to move, or did you make your motion?
It comes as a motion.
Okay. So is there any discussion of Malloy's motion to
the committee's motion?
Sorry. Committee's motion. Thank you. Any discussion, further discussion of the nominating committee's motion to nominate Linda McKim-Bell and Emmanuel Price as our newest human rights commissioners?
I just want to say, I don't think there's anything in the bylaws that prevents people from sitting at the table. So I would propose that once the HRC has nominated, has approved their nominations, that we should ask those folks to sit at the table.
Absolutely.
No matter how long it takes the city council to do their thing. Right. So at that point, I think that we should invite those folks to the table, and that they might even get placards.
Well, they've already got
maybe they should
name
name tags.
tags, so.
So anyway,
they already have name tags.
Yeah, Jeff already made name tags.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
he's confident.
So anyway, I just, I know that you've come to the meetings and figure, I just think we ought to make it official that please sit at the table.
I think that's
I
great.
don't think there's any
Great.
bylaws, I think it gets me in the meeting. You can't vote, but.
I just have a logistical question for Jeff. Is there anything we existing commissioners can help move the process along with these 4 nominations, or is that going to?
If you had full-time staff, it probably would have happened by now, but No.
I meant in terms of more communication with City Hall.
No, it's not a matter of communication with City Hall, it's a matter of me balancing all this work that I do.
But they're being responsive.
Well, the latest snag that came into play was when, City Council said, no one got back with me about requiring a meeting. And then, once we got the meeting with the mayor's office with all 4 of the newer commissioners, then, an office stepped up and said, yeah, we want to. And then we tried to work that out for a couple of weeks, and they said, well, we just don't have time. So.
And that's what I meant, is
Yeah.
there's no assistance there you need from us.
And not unless, no, there's no assistance that can happen there. Thank you, though. I appreciate that.
Any additional discussion on the nominating committee's motion? Okay. So all in favor of nominating Linda McKim-Bell and Emmanuel Price? A show of hands and an aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion carries. Welcome. Congratulations. Okay. So we have every expectation that we'll have 4 new commissioners at the table next month. Yeah, keep your fingers crossed, everybody. But either way, we will have 4 new individuals at the table next month. So we hope they will be commissioners.
Sam.
Oh, they're just not here. Okay.
Right.
Well, somebody's here.
Oh, wait, no, yeah.
Emmanuel and Sam.
Yes.
Is that it from the nominating committee?
The last thing, hopefully all of you saw my email about volunteers. I did want to say that Alan has graciously volunteered to be the second member from the class of 2015. So now I only need a volunteer from the group that includes Abdul, Danita, Amy, now Linda, and that's it. Myra's already on the nominating committee. So the next task, which will start fairly soon, for the 2 people from 2014 and the 2 people from 2015, is doing the reappointment for the class of 2013. So, and there, well, hopefully by then there'll be 5 of us. So, that's, yeah, so let me know.
Okay.
When do you need to know?
Well, the next week or 2 would be great, just so we can get started on the reappointment. I mean, 4 of the people will have served for less than 6 months, so I don't think that's gonna be a deal, but still, I'd rather get this so we can vote on the reappointments in September, with October as sort of a fallback, things don't go according to plan. So that hopefully people can start in November as fully confirmed commissioners.
And from the communications that I've had, and they've been inconsistent with City Council, it would be a good idea to get those over to them as soon as we can, just so if there are meetings that need to take place or anything like that. So maybe if we can have those in place by our next meeting, that would be really helpful, so that we can let anybody who's interested in reappointments know that these are the people that are going to be reappointed, or even talk to our city commissioners about the process of reappointment if they have any desire to be involved in that. Let them play that role, because they have a right to play that role.
As a matter of pre-Jeff history, has the city council come forward, members of the city council come forward before to say they want to interview reappointees?
We had an issue with that during the last reappointment process. That had never been an issue until last fall.
Okay, that's right.
We submitted for reappointment, and at that time, a couple of commissioners said, no, we don't want to do it that way anymore. And so we were temporarily reappointed for 6 months, and then they said, oh, well, okay.
Wait till the new council
Let's not
comes
do
in
that.
and then.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So we just want to make sure we don't run into that same problem again, which could probably just be resolved by getting out in front of it 2 months ahead of time.
Sure.
So,
Great.
Yep. Okay, is that it from nominating?
That's it.
All right. We're almost on time. Committee and task force updates. We're going to start tonight with CPRC. Do you have anything for us?
I can just briefly recap what we had a report out on our progress to date on the Department of Justice work, which also helped us update and align our work plan, strategic work plan with what's been happening, and I think we're moving along nicely on that. We changed our location to the crime prevention office out at the Kelly site on Burnside and 49th or 47 in there, and I think it was a little bit challenging, and we had double booked that space, and we had to convene our meeting downstairs, and so go through secured access to get down to our meeting, which was very uncomfortable for many people, and it really seemed uninviting. However, despite that glitch, we're going to continue meeting out there on a regular basis for some time now, with the exception of our some strategic meetings out in the community, which will be accompanied by some extensive outreach and building in some relevant agenda items when we're out meeting in those spaces. This next month, we'll have a report out on the stop traffic data from the Portland Police Bureau, and that should be very interesting. And
I think we'll need to, the police bureau will have to appoint a new person to CPRC because Commander Krebs was just promoted to assistant chief.
Oh, I read
Well, he
that.
will
I
be.
was wondering.
Is he gonna step?
I sent him a congratulations note, and he said it was nice working with you for that short time, so either I'm leaving or he is. So.
Oh,
That's too bad.
Jeff, you didn't get that.
So, yeah, so I don't know if there are other candidates that are maybe of a lower rank in the bureau, or if that's something they look at, or it seems kind of top heavy now, but.
Yeah, I don't know, we bypassed our regular check-in meeting with ACOJ this month because of meeting logistics, and just submitted an agenda, which I emailed you an approval on that electronically. So maybe I'll have to follow up on that with.
Yeah, it was just announced like I think Friday, so.
I missed that. I saw the announcement, but I didn't catch that on. Okay.
Before we move on to Housing Rights Task Force, who has good news, I just want to say, I just noticed that a letter was just passed around. This is not a letter of the Human Rights Commission. I didn't intend for this to be passed around.
Oh, sorry.
This is a letter that was presented to us by Romeo Sosa, and this is something that he gave to us as a possible template of something that we might use to draft a letter of our own. So anybody who has this letter, please do not give it to anybody saying this is a letter from the HRC. If you would be tempted to do that, please give it back to us. Because this is not something that we want to be in circulation as being something that the HRC has drafted, because I haven't even read it.
I heard him say too that this was for individual support.
And that's what I would say also, if you have the letter, if you are inclined as an individual to send us in your support, you can do so. Just do not put the organization as an HRC.
Right.
So, but yeah, but individuals are free to do that.
Not saying that we're not going to do a letter, but this is not
It's
it.
not it.
We just don't want this being circulated as a draft letter by the HRC. So just wanted to make sure that was clear. Housing rights, congratulations.
Thank you. No, the great news is that the Section 8 anti-discrimination bill passed after it failed, so that was nice. And the news of it, like, I got the news of it all within like a 2-hour period. So I was like, oh man, that's really crappy. Guess we got to think, strategy and figure out how to deal with this. And then all of a sudden, like, boom. So don't mess with Speaker Kotek is all I have to say. So that's really good. I don't know exactly when the law will take effect. I assume it will be January 1st.
I think it's July 1st of 2014.
Okay.
Do we know when the governor's going to sign it?
We don't have any reason to believe we won't.
No, I know, but do we know when?
Oh, man, no, I don't know. So that was really good, since we had supported that. And, you know, it's, I said before, the IZ bill got killed. But, so the Connecting Communities of Oregon met, to have a debrief and, you know, worked over what was done well, what was improvement. That was a very productive discussion. The hope is for there to be involvement, or the expectation is that Connecting Communities of Oregon will be an active participant in the work group that Speaker Kotek had said that she will convene, which is supposed to be this fall. And her office had indicated September is when they were going to start it, but I think everybody wants to take a month or so to get away from legislative work. So, so hopefully we can continue to insert ourselves through that process. And then I think the next step for the task force is for us to meet again and sort of see where, you know, now dust will have settled and we know what's what, so we can move forward. You know, we can identify things we want to move forward on, do that.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And congratulations to all of us. Yeah.
Here, here.
We did it as a commission, so.
I think there's some real challenges. If you follow the, if you read Oregon Live, you know, that's the story about the passage of 2639, it shows up as like the third most comments. And if you read the comments on Oregon Live, they're always particularly vile.
Yeah.
But these really point out to me how there are, what the sort of public sentiment about Section 8 voucher holders is. And to me, it's just one of the main reasons why something like this is so necessary. It was just really striking to me. I tend to try to ignore those, but it was really telling what, how people felt, and what they thought they knew about, you know, Section 8ers. So, I think it's a nice little victory, but I think there's so much more work to come down the line around continuing to enforce against that discrimination and to continue to make sure that what the goal is for opportunity and choice in housing. So I think we need to pay attention to whether or not that actually comes in the years to come. So this is a first tiny step and a first tiny victory. We'll see what goes next.
I think it might be good for the commission to start an official process of making sure we keep record of all of the successes, or not saying that this is solely the work of commission in whole. So, but I think it would be great for us to do that. That would help with our public relations and just in general. Here are some of the things that we've provided testimony on that have resulted in X, all that kind of stuff, legislative advocacy efforts that have been successful.
That's in this,
I think that's one of the places where we can do it.
And so I think it just lacks, somebody having a charge of doing that. So, I don't have an answer to that, but we just need to identify who or which committee would be doing that.
Is that the work?
Yeah, I think we would have a line item there that we would add that says that we advocated for, that we work with, you know, with connecting communities and advocated for 2639 and that it passed. We'll check mark in that column.
So a lot of people ask for your measurements of success, and some organizations call it points of pride or what have you, but it's a documentation of what you've really done. How do you really measure your work and your impact?
And on that document, I feel like it's a little bit different. It seems like the document has, we would place in there things that are going to be long-term, like it's going to continue happening, whereas like one specific example, I don't know how fit.
Well, I think it's both. I think we need to drill it down to those very specific action items that we can check off and say, this is what we did. Yeah.
This also helps with your report to council.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And we've got HRC work plan on the committee and liaison. Do you want to just talk about it now? We can go there.
I think, John, did you?
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
That's okay. I would say the other point though is that we need to include our work on the IC. Just because it didn't succeed doesn't reflect on us, and so that needs to be included on there as well. It was the note that it didn't pass, but that should reflect that we didn't step up and do our part.
And it's a continuing project.
And it got farther than it's ever gotten before.
So why don't we talk about the work plan while we're on it?
So the only thing that's happened with work plans, I reformatted it and I got trying to get some feedback from the different committees. What I found was when I revisited it was very difficult to populate. So I tried to make a format that would make it a little bit easier for us to add these line items of things that we're actually doing. So yellow, this does have both, so that the priority activities are kind of are those long-term goals that we have around the things we'd like to do. And then the next step down from that are the specific action items that each of the committees are involved in that fit those goals or activities. You know, so when we talk about connecting with the community or forming partnerships, you know, what are the actual activities that we're doing in those? And so that's what I'm trying to populate here and pull from the 3 or 4 committees that we have to say, here's what we're doing or have done over the last year. Because for instance, CPRC has its own work plan that we'll try to fold into this. And same with the activities of CDC, how can we fold into that, into HRC's overall work plan? So we have one document that is the parent document that we can show to city council, for instance, as opposed to coming in with 4 different work plans for the subcommittees.
And so along that out, I want to make the recommendation that we reverse our language, that the individual committees need to reflect the language of the overall plan. If that makes sense.
Right, yeah, exactly,
So that the individual committee work plans have a section 3 education strategy.
That's right, that they're aligned with.
Whether or not your committee has an education component, at least make note that you're using the same language and the same plan.
Yeah, and I think that CPRC comes closest, but even that one was kind of hard to fold in. So there's some sort of logistical issues around how to complete that. So the bigger piece of it, I think, is that we need to put in place a process for at what point of the year, you know, does this work plan run through? When do we approve it? So I think we have to have a natural schedule for doing that every year. I don't know what dates that would be.
Well, I think that's a good question. I also think, I mean, there's the even more basic question of where does this thing live and who's responsible for maintaining it. And so I don't know that that's a question that has to be answered today.
Right.
But this is almost like another one of these projects, these process projects that we're working on right now with the bylaws and the communications and the action items and the work plan. And I'm glad we're doing these things. I think they're extremely important, but at this point, it's you.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And so I'm just kind of working through the logistical pieces of, oh yeah, how do we make this happen? There is no process in place other than what we've been through in each of the committees. So I don't think we have to stop doing the work. All I'm trying to do is gather it in one place eventually. So we'll keep doing the work and then we'll figure out how to convey it to folks eventually. That's all I'm doing.
My only recommendation to you is, having been through this myself before, Alan, in your position, is don't get fixated on now.
Yeah, on what's happening now.
Yeah, you should be thinking about when does 2014-15 plan start, and I'm going to start working on that.
Yeah, exactly.
The individual committees continue to be day-to-day work now, but it's about, like you're saying, it's about you helping us get forward so that we're always a year ahead of where we need to be on our work.
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to capture, some of those, but I'd like to go back too, because we want to use it for our report to council, because it's one of the ways we can capture and easily say, what have we done over the last year? So that's the other piece I'm trying to go back to. Those, where they fit into what we agreed to do in July of 2012.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dual purpose document, both to record what we've done and to plan for what we will do. It's just about how to make that happen in the most efficient way and in a way that's sustainable, because you're not always going to be here. And we're all not always going to be here. So, and Jeff, you may not even always be here. According to unless Commander Krebs does something.
Exactly. So yeah, so I think we should plug in some sort of annual work plan this is the month that we update the work plan.
Or even semi-annual or
Yeah.
quarterly.
Well, I think we have to continually update it, but this is the month that we say, okay, here's what our work plan for
Oh, I see.
2014 is. So in August, we set the work plan for September through September of the following year.
Do you think that's something that you would want to align with the, like executive committee turnover time?
Yeah, that's what we have to look at, is it better to do it in November or in October? It might be, but I think that's right around the time we would look at, maybe it's December.
Yeah.
And do we have leeway in terms of reporting to council time?
Well, reporting to council is going to be in October at the end of the executive committee term.
So that's already lined up?
It's
Would be with that
going to be in
plan, yeah.
October, yeah.
So to help me understand a little bit better, so for instance, in the last page, accountability and transparency, like the reason why I was wondering about specific events, do they belong? Like here I see the kind of the roundtable and the public forums being able to accomplish number one, but it says it goes through public meetings and the timely distribution of agendas, meeting minutes, and other resources. So that seems like a couple of different things could be placed in this box.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So that means that we would just fill whatever fits,
Whatever
will go into here, and
Yeah,
we'll just
and-
extend the lines.
Yeah, exactly, that's exactly right. So that's why I reformatted it, so that we can just start adding rows underneath each of those. We can add as many rows as we want, and some activities can fulfill more than one goal.
Yeah.
So those community forums will fulfill several different functions, several different goals that we're trying to achieve.
Okay. Cool.
So if you have ideas that you want to send to me, things you can, otherwise I'll work with the committee chairs on, trying to discover what either you've done over the last year or what you're planning to do over the next year.
And then we'll post it.
Yeah, and eventually it will be a public document. And then it will also, as Kyle's alluded to, be a live document. We'll find the keeper of it to keep it live.
So, couple questions or
Yeah.
clarifying moments for me. I really appreciate the work that went into this, and I think it's, a good tool. I'm curious about how committees, I'm just curious about the language overlap instruction, that the format be utilized by standing committees as well, or just want to make sure there's flexibility for standing committees to have different things in their work plan that may not be reflected in this larger commission work plan.
Yeah.
Is there?
Okay,
I just want to make sure. The
But I
work
think-
plan is what's set forth to meet like the goals and objectives of the entity, and it's a way to measure those, the progress made. So I just want to make sure there's flexibility there.
But I think-
I might want to add additional measures, I guess, like points and measures in the public policy committee, for example, that don't exist in this document.
I think that's okay, but I think part of what John is saying is that at a minimum, I think that all the work that's being done by the HRC, which includes the subcommittee, should be aligned with its 4 key goals, its 4 core goal strategies around education, advocacy, visibility, and what did I just say? Lost the 4. Education, advocacy, visibility, and
Discovery.
discovery. So, I mean, it can be as broad as those 4. That your
So
activities
those are
should.
I've done a lot of strategic planning national, and those I understand are 4 larger core areas of focus for
Yep.
the work that we do. But just because I'm most involved in the public policy committee, I'm using that as an example, but within that policy advocacy, there are gonna be a number of goals within that committee.
Yeah.
That aren't articulated at the larger commission level
Right.
in this document, so I just wanna make sure there's flexibility
Yeah.
there.
But I think those 4 goals provide a lot of broad opportunities for anybody to sort of want to do.
Yeah, so we won't have scope creep or something outside of those 4 bigger areas or anything, but I just wanna make sure that we can get more detailed, I guess, in terms of what we can add as measures and goals and everything. And then I think there might be strong objection to this, but it makes sense to me that this be housed at the executive committee, and that committees are responsible for providing updates, so that can be incorporated into the larger document.
I would second that sentiment.
And that's kind of the way it's living right now, so we'll have to figure out who gets assigned to it with that level.
Because in the same ways that the bylaws serve higher level providing us direction. This is a very on the ground reality, but I think the responsibility of making sure that the subcommittees and individual commissioners are doing that work is still at the executive committee's feet.
I actually think that's what the bylaw second.
I know Kyle will work for you.
All right, moving on.
Speaking of which, Kyle, I think in this section you should mention the bylaws meeting.
I'm going to mention.
And just one more thing, I know I'm being irritating, but the last thing is the points of pride, or whatever you want to call it, thing, if we could be sure to tease that out of our success measures or whatever we have reported throughout, and having like a standing document that you know, lists, or however, I'm not the most creative in terms of layout, but some way of sharing that with the public, and I think in newsletters or other things would be a good way to disseminate that, but on our website also, something that's like, here's what the HRC has been involved in, and here are some areas that we have impacted these issues or made positive change in these ways. I think it'd be really helpful for people to see, like, you know, even 10 top examples of where we have made change. I would think that that would exist within the executive committee as well, but that the committees and work groups and so forth would be responsible for sharing that information. But, you know, I've done that before for NICWA, and I'd be happy to help. That seems unclear what that would look like.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, next on the list is communications work plan update. This has been an ongoing effort. Jeff, Amy, Ashley, Christine, and I met last month to start putting together, kind of, I guess, sort of synthesizing the communications plan that Christine has shared with everybody, and the request for action plan that Amy and Ashley worked on. And I'm not really sure if that has actually been circulated, because it was in sort of a development stage.
It was once circulated, kind of accidentally, because
But
it was a very raw form.
Right. And we're still working on it. This is more of an update of where we are. We're continuing to meet. We're still working on that. One thing that I was asked to talk about, though, quickly was a question that has been coming up a lot, which is when we are out in public, or when we want to go out in public, how are we supposed to be representing the commission? And it's something that we have been developing based on looking at the bylaws. And I just want to read what we've been circulating. This is the language that we all circulated, and so this is the language that is in the communications and requests for action plan currently. I want to note that this is a group that is meeting in the next month, and we do have room for one more commissioner if they want to participate. If they hear something like this and say, no, I don't want that to be part of this thing, feel free to come and talk to any one of us about when our next meeting is, because we do have room for one more commissioner without creating a quorum currently. So commissioners are encouraged to attend community events in their capacity as HRC commissioners. We can support them by providing them with HRC materials to display, like name tags and buttons, and or distribute, like business cards, pamphlets, and buttons. And we do have business cards now. Isn't that right, Jeff?
Right.
Yes. So if you need business cards, do we have enough to pass out?
We have to plug them out of the extra folders, but yes.
Okay.
Well, they were all put in the folders for the, not all of them, but yeah, we have.
And I don't know if you all got to see these really snappy CPRC pamphlets, but these are great. This, hopefully we'll be able to do something like this for the Human Rights Commission too, right?
Yeah, just swap out to the library.
Right. So those are things that we could have with us at these kind of events that we attend. Commissioners may promote the mission of the HRC and speak generally about what we do, our specific projects, and our meeting times. Commissioners should encourage community members to get involved by attending HRC meetings, making public comment, and volunteering for open positions on HRC committees and task forces. HRC commissioners may not commit the commission to any action without first receiving authorization from the executive committee or the entire commission at a regular or special meeting. Service on the commission does not prohibit members from speaking in an individual capacity. or participating in government as members of the general public. In so doing, commissioners shall clarify that they are speaking or acting in their individual capacity and not on behalf of the commission. So the takeaway message to the question that has come up a number of times recently is, yes, please go out and go to as many events as you possibly can. Wear your button, wear your pin, your name tag, pass out HRC information, talk up the HRC, but when you're commenting on issues, if it's a substantive issue-based comment, simply say, I'm an HRC commissioner, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the commission with this comment. That includes any public speaking or online posting or anything like that. So, but that isn't to say that everybody doesn't have the capacity to do that. We just have to have some sort of control over how those messages are disseminated. So that's the current response to the question that has come up. That's something that's going to be a part of the communications model, action process model, probably, and maybe even, I mean, that all of that response comes from the bylaws. And I've got the citations because I'm a lawyer, so I put citations in everything. So if you want those, I'll be happy to provide them to you. John, did you have something?
Just if you're finished.
I'm finished.
Could I receive clarification, is there still a communications committee, or has that been disbanded? And if not, what is the process for assigning someone a chair to that committee? Because I feel like it should be manned very quickly.
Or woman.
Woman, excuse me, person.
Staff.
Person. Yes, I would be.
There is not currently, well, there is a communications work group currently. Christine had been the chair of the communications committee, and she resigned. And it's not yet, at this point, clear whether we believe a communications committee is the proper form for our communications plan. But if you would like to come to the communications work group and talk about that, that would be great. I think that's a discussion that we could all have. We have a communications plan that we're developing. I'm not sure, and I think.
The plan says that the chair, quote, unquote, is the ghost marketer.
No, okay. The which plan? Our communications plan?
Yeah, the one that, yeah.
Says that the
Debbie,
chair is the
you're the
ghost.
You're the ghost marketer, right?
No one knows.
No, yeah.
Yes, go.
So that's what Christina presented.
That's what Chris.
That's what I remember.
Okay, I see what you're saying. The chair of the communications.
The person that would act as chair.
And I mean, in developing the communications plan, what we kind of realized was that this wasn't really the kind of committee that we're used to, where a committee would come and say, hey, I'm reporting, these have been the committee activities. It's more of a communications plan where this is an ongoing responsibility that is going to be carried out by, according to this specific plan. And so it's not really a reporting structure type of committee. So we're still working it out. But I'm certainly not opposed to having a communications committee. And if that's the best way to do it and have some sort of grounding and responsibility that makes it more clear, then I'm all for it. So, you want to find out when the communications meeting is after this meeting?
I believe it's Friday the 19th.
I think you're right.
At noon here.
Yep.
And I would say I would encourage there to be a separate body or an additional body that's looking at communications in addition to executive committee and Jeff. That's my opinion. As a check and balances.
Okay, well, that would fit that mold. So, that's where we are for communications work group at this point. Is there anything that you would like to add, Amy or Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to clarify that I think that communications work is beyond communications, because I think I see half of it as looking at response sorry, request for action process. So just for those of you who want to get involved with that, it's a good time.
I don't know that we should mix those up.
Yeah, I guess that's where part of my confusion
Yeah,
is.
I mean, to me, communications is a very specific definition, and I don't think, so you would be talking about what happened here tonight with Bolo's as a request for action would dump into the same committee that might be doing the newsletter, with the same function, I would say. That's
My
what I'm hearing.
understanding is Amy and I agreed to take a first stab and a second stab at this sort of decision to act protocol, and then we realized there was overlap with what Christine had already shared with everyone and her good work. And then we needed to sort of integrate where the two overlapped, but some of it isn't specifically communications. It just seems like that's where we're housing the further discussion about this issue. That's my
And it's
understanding.
really evolving at this point, because there is overlap, but there is a lot of distinction.
Yeah, and eventually we
but-
could maybe
Yeah,
meet
we-
separately, but the core group has been meeting already, so is that?
I think it will be able to be teased out.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer that before it got too far down the
Yeah.
line.
But
Because I know that
that's
we'll have our
very
things to
true.
talk about it, but
Yeah.
before that would just be my opinion. So,
So I think that's true. I mean, they are very separate in a lot of ways. There are just some overlaps that we couldn't really, I don't think we can resolve without having everybody together. And so that's why we brought everybody together to talk about it. Jeff, do you have anything to add about communication? No. Okay. Ashley, policy.
Sorry, that was a simple no after.
I love it.
I liked it.
That's why he's our communications man. No,
Few words.
yes, no.
Brevity is an art.
I don't think, well, so the Public Policy Committee convened, and that's John, Kyle, and myself for now, and we had a really good first meeting, and really right now what we're looking at are how can we further develop our internal processes, and what are some of the next steps, and so there's some process and content related stuff and relationship related stuff there. So we'd like to develop an agenda of policy events that we should be tracking and participating in various ways, that we're both responding to and proactively initiating if possible. And I know that earlier in conceptualizing the Public Policy Committee, we talked about having more of a role in advising decision makers and stuff, so that would be something that hopefully would be calendared into that. Also looking at thematically, like what types of issues do we want to take on, and really interested in hearing, the feedback from the roundtable event, because I believe that will really influence, how we assess, how we can move forward and be a public policy change. We talked about the two issues that we heard from today, just briefly in terms of how the policy committee initially wanted to respond, and we communicated that with CDC, and we're on the same page there. It's really, we have to develop a work plan and a number of the core initial steps that any sort of committee has to do. So that was our first meeting, and we met for 2 hours. So a lot of process and some brainstorming stuff. I don't know if either of you want to add anything to that. I had a lot of fun though, and I really appreciate both gentlemen who came. If anyone else wants to join, that's great too. So
I had fun too.
Okay,
I did
good.
too. Alan, you were right, bylaws wasn't on here, I'm sorry. I just want to mention that Alan and I and Donita are the volunteers to help to amend the bylaws and to update them to come into compliance with our strategic plan. We're meeting on Friday to do that. Amy
Question
has-
about that, I saw a deadline on the work plan for there to be a vote to changes, and I support that kind of deadline, and I do hope that there's leeway for that, because I think that vote should follow a big hunk of what's happening with communication, request for action, process stuff. I mentioned that before, but
Yeah, I think.
say it again.
Yeah, I think the idea would be that we would come up with a draft and then circulate it to everybody, and then everybody could go in and do whatever, kick the tires and do whatever they want with it, and then go back to work. I don't know if that deadline that you put on there was
It's
more
not
of
really a
a,
deadline, it's just it's a
more of
timeframe
an
for
aspirational.
when it's being worked on, and what's the process for actually getting through that. So we're working on it right now, and then it'll eventually go to a full HRC vote.
Okay.
And yeah, ideally, if we work on it in July and August, we could vote in sometime.
community discovery, you've already talked about the roundtable. Was there anything else you'd like to add?
It looks like we're gonna set our next meetings for Fridays, 1 to 2:30. We are also involved with that request for action process because we started an intake plan, and so that's getting woven into that too. Anything else, CC?
No, I've just been thinking about the fact that, well, this is probably gonna have to come up in a later meeting, but taking seriously these public forums that are gonna come up soon, so just want everybody to be ready.
Looking forward to it. I think those would be great. Okay, thanks, everybody. Levon, I'm really sorry. we kept you-
OHR.
I'm sorry. Amended. OHR.
Something that I think would be of interest in the room is we're working on the We Are Portland Awards. They're happening on July 26th at the Urco Community Room at 10 o'clock. Nominations are open until the 16th of this month. Nominations are for city staff, for community leaders who contribute to the City of Portland, to City of Portland partnerships with immigrant and refugee communities during 2012. So if you know of anybody, let me know if you'd like to nominate somebody. I can, we'll be posting stuff, we'll be sending out a press release as well, with more information about that. But nominations are through the 16th.
And that's at 10 o'clock. Is it a banquet or?
No, well, I'm not sure exactly.
And are there chairs that we need to reserve if we want to, I mean, are
I
there
think
invitations
the
coming
public's just
out?
invited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's only scheduled for about an hour, so.
Okay.
And the date again?
I'm sorry, July 26th.
Okay.
The nominations are due by the 16th, so if you know of anybody, please let me know. So the office is busy doing usual stuff. Portland World Cup Soccer just happened. The annual report is what I've been working on for the office. We're getting that finished so we can present to council kind of the accomplishments of the office for over the past year or the first year. And that should go to Bureau Advisory Committee first. So Alan, you're on the committee, right?
Yeah, I just followed up with that this morning because there was a doodle that went around asking for calendar dates in second and third weeks of July, and I asked Muna, and she said she wasn't able to schedule it because there wasn't enough agreement on when to schedule it, so.
Okay, I think Joe's stepping in to take care of that, so we want to make sure we talk to the Bureau Advisory Committee and then roll it out to council, and you'll all get a copy of it.
And I would imagine that Dante is going to be mentioning HRC during his report to council.
I mean, briefly, there are a lot of programs that we would have to mention.
Would you like a list of accomplishments so that he can have at least those at his disposal?
That would be great.
Okay, so I'd like to just request that the chairs of each committee send me a list of the accomplishments of their committee and any other accomplishments that you can think of from the HRC this year, so that I'll be the clearinghouse for that, and then I will give those to Jeff. If you can get those to me by, when should Dante have those? Yesterday?
Within a week.
Okay, so if you guys can get me those by Friday, I'll get those to Dante by Tuesday.
Those are also good to have because, you know, as we start formulating a report, the HRC report to council, that'll be useful there. So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much. Levon, I apologize again for running 15 minutes behind schedule.
It's to be expected.
I know,
It's,
we're predictable.
yeah.
Levon, just for everybody, from Portland Commission on Disabilities.
And giving the Portland Commission on Disability just a little update on page 9. I'm going to do this for you guys. So first of all, we really wanted to thank you for inviting us to be part of the roundtable. I think it's really important. I think we have us as sister commissions. And so people in the executive committee were very excited to be invited, so thank you. Some reports of some things that we've been up to is that we got access, the Veterans Memorial was actually not accessible for people who use wheelchairs or walkers or things like that. And it became kind of a bit of a hullabaloo. But now between it being reported to Livability and Wellness, it being taken up as a issue in the accessibility in the built environment, and then the liaison to Fritz mentioning it to her and Dante mentioning it to her, Parks stepped up and is going to take care of it, and we're hoping that it's done by or by Veterans Day. And I was like, no, that's not it. Okay, by Veterans Day, so I think that's a great accomplishment that we've had. So
Kudos to Commissioner Fritz for getting funding the money in Parks to do it.
yeah, because originally it was being asked of the veterans community to come up with money, and they felt a little bit like, wait a second, we've done all this, you know, we've volunteered for this country, and now we're being asked to come up with money for access to our so that's great. The big one that I have to report is that we're having a big ADA celebration. It's the 23rd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which will also be on July 26th. And we are having a celebration. Polo will be the MC, because we're really trying to reach out into other communities. And I think it's not about saying, hey, you have a disability and you're from another community, come join us. But it's more about building some genuine relationships. And so this is an extension of or in place of our networking nights that we've been having. And I'm trying to find the thing. And so here are write-up on it and just invitations. You are all invited, and please invite community members that you think, for any organizations you're involved with. It is going to be participatory, and it's going to have some fun activities, and we'll have birthday cake. Yeah. And that's the other thing is, if you're going to bring in other communities, you must feed them, which is what I see, you know, you guys are very good at. We are also going to be having our strategic planning. I know when I first came in, I saw Mark Fulop had been working with your organization. We'll be having our strategic planning this Friday.
With Mark too?
No, we're actually going to be doing it with Joe Wall from OEHR. But I think that we will probably come out with some new and different things of how we're handling things. But we're looking at some of the, as I listen to what you guys are talking about, we're looking about how do you make a request for action from PCOD? How, you know, should we have business cards? The fact that you guys have name tags and everything, all those things. We do already have a newsletter. It's the Disability News, and anyone who's not receiving it, please feel free to contact Patrick Philpott or just have Jeff get your name added to Patrick's list, and you can get information about different events coming up in the community regarding the disability community. And I also put in things that are not specific for the disability community, but places that I think the disability community would really, there would be a value of the disability community being included.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty much that's where we're at, and if you guys have any questions about what we're up to, I'd be happy to answer.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. And that EDA event is from 4 to 6:30 on Friday the 26th. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and I have more of the short version. I just apparently didn't see them in my, that's part of being legally blind. Well, you know, when I walked into a wall earlier, I was like, oh yeah, this is part of being legally blind.
Was it Joe Wall?
Oh, no, it was not Joe Wall, but I have done that before too.
Good, yeah, all right. Well, with that.
Thank you, Lamont.
I have an announcement. On 24th, there is an event commemorating the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. Now, I know that Linda is going to be in Washington for the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, so that'll be great. We'll have to get a full report on that. Thank you for doing that. That's amazing. But for those of us who will not be in DC for that event, there is going to be one here. It's organized, I believe, by the AMA. Is that in partnership with probably many others? It's on August 24th. There is a planning meeting July 18th at 6:30 p.m. and I don't have the address for that.
I haven't. If anybody's interested, I can pull it up here.
But I would encourage anybody from the HRC to participate in that on the 24th. I actually have a wedding on the afternoon and evening, so hopefully it's in the morning. And I will definitely be there, but we should try to get as many people as we can to that kind of an event. It's obviously very important. Voting Rights Act having just been gutted. It's a very timely thing for Human Rights Commission to be participating in, so a good presence there would be much appreciated by all of us.
So those are the AMA regular meetings that I usually go to, and I will be going to this one to help organize as much as I can, but I will not be able to go to the March. I'll be out of town. So if anybody is interested in attending and needs more details.
And I am too.
Okay.
How about a quick announcement? August 6th and 9th, the 68th anniversary of the atomic bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Physicians for Social Responsibility have an event at the Japanese American Historical Plaza on the waterfront on Tuesday, August 6th, from 6 to 7 in the evening, and talking about the Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Hanford connection. Plutonium for those bombs was from Hanford in Richland, Washington, not too far from
Could you
us.
give us those specifics again?
Tuesday, August 6th, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. The Japanese American Historical Plaza on the Portland waterfront. And it's Physicians for Social Responsibility, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Hanford, a tragic connection. And I'm emceeing it.
And then, did you say the 9th also?
No, that's just the anniversary.
Oh, that's
of
just
the
the
bombings.
anniversary. Okay.
Sorry, I'm so slow typing. Where is it again?
Waterfront.
Japanese American Historical Plaza. Thank you, Jeff. Diallo.
On the topic of disabilities and kind of the roundtable, so a man by the name Jason Renau, he was pretty upset with the HRC, and I kind of just want to know how we are going to address it, or just kind of just talk about it, because I don't want it to go ignored. And it came to mind when she was up here speaking about disability, and so his basic concern was he doesn't want to be involved with HRC until we have somebody from the disabled community on the commission, and that's what he said. But yeah, I just really wanted to talk about it, see what you think.
I think specifically from the mental health community, right? Because we have had people with disabilities on the commission in the past, and he has participated.
Okay.
So my assumption is that he means mental health.
Yeah, I think the way to address that is to contact him and ask him, exactly what he would like to see, and try to have a dialogue about, if he wants to come to a meeting, if you want, to invite him to participate. There's not much we can do.
I mean, have you turned down people who have applied from communities with disabilities?
I don't know.
I guess I would just encourage the representatives who go forth with that conversation, though, is one thing that needs clarification is what are his personal understanding and what are the understanding of the organization he represents. I would say that was not clear in the message.
No, it wasn't.
I would ask for clarification in that, because I know there's a history of this, of his request that led to the formation of the Disability Commission, so I want to make sure that their work is being recognized. I'm not sure he recognized their work in his response.
Yeah, I think that the message that I got was that he didn't want he was offended by the fact that the Human Rights Commission was created and then they put persons with disabilities in a different category. And so that was offensive to him, and that the city had erred. None of us, obviously, I don't believe we're a part of that decision. We're here trying to advocate for human rights. So I think, you know, my personal approach, and I can't take my own personal approach all the time, doing Human Rights Commission business, but would be to just talk about it and say, well, what exactly is the issue, and try to share information about what we do here, and that we don't discriminate, and that we would welcome applicants from all areas of the community, and we certainly aren't turning people away because they have disabilities.
I think that's the key message, that you guys aren't excluding anybody from applying.
Lavon?
No one's being excluded from applying, but I think that the information's not getting out into the disability community when there are positions available. And that is one thing that if there's a way to maybe create a way, because I'd love to have it when there are applications, when you are taking applications, if we could get it into the disability news.
Yeah. I think we're always taking applications.
Well,
I mean, any
yeah.
city commission is always taking
Well, then
applications.
When there's a
something we
vacancy, maybe. When there's a vacancy, we should maybe broadcast it more broadly and in a way that's more accessible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
but
just because
that's
that would
good
be a
information.
way
Yeah.
of of making it so it's an inviting, and that's something you could bring to him and say, we have done this,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, and I think the most important thing is that kind of an email and response starts this conversation. And I found it really troubling that his representation was essentially that an entire segment of our community feels betrayed by the Human Rights Commission. And I think he's overstating that personally, but I don't know that. And I certainly find it troubling that would be a sentiment from any person in the community. So it's about making the effort and getting the information from him, I think.
So what would be a good plan to move forward into that?
Well, if you'd like, I can contact him. It's certainly something that I would be willing to do. I'm not gonna be making any representation on behalf of the commission, but I can certainly have a conversation with him and find out what's going on. It's actually in my to-do list. Your email is in my to-do list. So if that's something that you all would like me to do, I'd certainly be willing to do it.
I think it's a good plan. Yeah.
Does anybody have any objection to that? Okay, I'll get hold of him. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, everybody, 12 minutes late. That's not that bad.